morning to our 2024 Candidate Forum, sponsored by the Neighborhood Council of St. Augustine. My name is Burry Gowan, and for the past 2.5 years, it has been my honor to serve as the president of the Neighborhood Council of St. Augustine. The Neighborhood Council is an umbrella organization made up of 11 neighborhood associations here in St. Augustine, and our mission is basically to serve as an information conduit between the city and its neighborhoods, and also to work to protect the livability and residential character of our city's neighborhoods. And we take that mission very, very seriously. So you will notice as you read through the questions that are on the sheet at your seat, that they have a distinct neighborhood flavor to them, because that is who we are here to look out for, and it is for neighbors that we are here to find out the various positions of the two good men behind me. Tonight we continue a tradition that stretches back many years. We will be hearing from the two candidates who will be running for seat 1 of the City Commission. This will be an important election because the winner will for the next 4 years be making decisions which will, in a very real way, affect the value of your home, the livability, the character, and even the safety of your neighborhood. In my opinion, this is perhaps one of the most important elections. If all politics is local, this is as local as it gets. And thank you for coming on such a beautiful evening for a couple of hours. There should be, at the end of our formal program, plenty of time for you to meet and mingle with the candidates. I want you to appreciate the fact that this is a nonpartisan election, and in that full spirit, I'm wearing a completely nonpartisan tie. Red, blue, all the way up. And that's actually important because you can't get a clue as to how you should vote by a little R or a little D or a little I. In order to truly understand where these candidates position themselves, you have to find out about them. So thank you for your civic awareness and for your willingness to participate in tonight's evening. Just a quick note on our format. We have 10 questions. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to give a response to the question. Following that, there will be a 30-second response time. They can either respond to their opponent or expand their answer, or a little of both, whatever. We're going to have a little bit longer response time for the vision plan question, because that's a big one. We will be picking randomly the person to speak first on each question. Each candidate will have an equal number of times when they speak first and that they speak last. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our two candidates. Thank you very much for coming and giving us your time tonight. Mr. John Cutter, Mr. Billy Trio. All right, and directly to the person standing in front here is Jorge Rivera, who is in the process of videotaping this, and the videotape will be put up on the Neighborhood Council website. And directly to my left is my good friend Carl Jensen from Seattle, who agreed to come and time tonight. So here we are. All right, gentlemen, welcome. I'm gonna have quickly on the rules. Well, I don't need to go over the rules. You can see the rules. They're on the second page of your handout. If you just take a look at that, please don't speak, applause, or anything until both candidates have finished all of their responses to a question, and I'll say thank you, candidates, at which point you can applaud and do all that kind of stuff if you would. Does that sound fair? Yes. All right. Okay. Well, I'm looking around. Why don't we have Mr. David Burcham, the city manager, pick the first person to speak on the first question. Just one. Who is it? John. Okay, John will be first up on the first question, and John, you're gonna have.
Sorry, messed you up. Go ahead.
Okay, that's good. And John will have 2 minutes. At which point, after which Billy will have 2 minutes to speak to that. Let me quickly read the question. Yeah, this is the softball question. Getting to know the candidates. Tell us about yourself, and tell us why you decided to run for city commissioner.
Little personal information. I am married. I've been married 45 years to my wife, Andrea. We celebrated our 45th anniversary this July 4th. When I was young, I was in a military family. We traveled around a lot, but I ended up getting a Master's of Fine Art degree from the University of Colorado in 1980, and I'm a former owner of a sign graphics and wood carving business. 31 years ago, Andrea and I bought our property in Lighthouse Park. We would use it as a second home for many years with the eye on retiring to it. And we did that 12 and a half years ago. I sold my business and Andrea quit retired from her school teaching career. 9 years ago, I got involved in community service in the city of St. Augustine, starting with 3 years as a president of Lighthouse Park. I see some of my neighbors here. Thank you for coming out tonight. When I was president, we had a couple of issues. I think I really like engaging on the neighborhood level. And what we ended up doing was steering the neighborhood through the Lighthouse Park rezoning. I think that's how I got involved in the community on that level. And I would have to say, while he's here, we got a lot of help from a very creative head of a planning department at the time. And we had very good input from the residents. And I think we came up with a win-win with that. We also worked on developing the Maria Andrew Conservation Area. And we also worked with Principal Gorman on getting a safer pickup and drop-off protocol at RV Hunt for the children. 6 years ago, I was appointed to Planning Board, and since that time, I have been, is this it? 4 seconds left? Oh, sorry. I'll tell you about the Planning Board next time, thanks.
I couldn't see that.
My name is Billy Triai. I'm a 7th generation St. Johns County native. I am the single father of 2 lovely boys who are hopefully not tearing up the house at the moment. I've worked for the last 30 years. Basically, the city has been my career. I worked 15 years with the city of St. Augustine, and that included the management of the Visitor Information Center and the parking lot at that time, and then the historical resources, state-owned historical resources that the city managed for 13 years. And then I also am now, for the last 15 years, I've been with the University of Florida managing those same historic resources, which are approximately 42 structures in the historic district. I've always been passionate about my city. It shows I've been here for that long. I've always been concerned about our city because we're indelible, but we're also somewhat delicate. We've always have to keep that in mind. And what really prompted me to run for city commission at this time, when you work downtown for this many years, you see the evolution. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. Recently, I've seen commercial growth in the historic district expand just to a point where it was unnecessary. I'm concerned we'll lose the golden goose. We'll kill it. Right now is somewhat crucial. It can go away, and I don't want to see that go away. But that neighborhood, that historic district, those historic districts are just part of us all. We all live in our own neighborhoods, but we've got to remember what happens to one of us happens to all of us. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to pick the order of the next 2 questions. And would you mind picking one person to be the person who speaks first? Yep. Who is it?
Billy.
Oh, okay. So Billy, you're going to be the first person to speak on question 3, and John, you'll be the first person to. I'm sorry, on question 2, and John, you'll be the first person to speak on question 3. So this on question 2, it says no rebuttal, but I'm actually going to let you have another 30 seconds to extend after each person has spoken on this one. Okay, so So, candidates, what are your top 3 priorities as a commissioner? If you're elected, which one would you focus on first and why?
This is really difficult. Narrowing the top 3, every day I think it changes for me. Everything I see, it changes. But I think we have to look at our planning and zoning codes and enforcement of those planning and zoning codes. I think we also have to look at police resources. That's something we tend to forget. It's extremely important. And then the third one, it really has to go into revisiting agreements that the city has made with the state of Florida, assuming the responsibility of King Street, and the parking garage at King Street and US 1. Those two, and that one is going to be my most concern in immediate action I think we really need to take. We need to look at that. Make sure, let's revisit it and just go strictly into detail of exactly what has been done. Is it really good for the city and for its residents? And more importantly, affordability. Quite often, we throw budget numbers at these projects. Well, some of those projects are going to run a lot more than you're aware of, or I'm aware of, or even the city commission as a whole are aware of. We really have to look at these kind of projects and exactly, was that done with the right and best intention? The parking garage at King Street and US 1, that's a heavily congested area. Are we doing it right by putting or directing our traffic to an already congested area? I'm not saying we do not need parking there. We do. But there are flat lots that we can put around in those areas that will benefit the smaller businesses, not just the tourists that are looking for a hub. We can look at putting those kind of parking areas out of the historic district and then having shuttles that will run. And that will help the smaller businesses on the ancillary areas of San Marco, Anastasia, and King. Thank you.
Okay, I was saying that I got on the planning board, and I've been on the planning board for the last 6 years. So the priorities that I'm going to address and talk about are the priorities I've seen from my experience on the planning board for the last 6 years. So I've reviewed over 400 applications. I've heard public testimony from thousands of people on the issues that face them. So my view is a very citywide view and basically based on what I saw on the planning board. The 3 top issues I think that are affecting the community is flooding and resiliency and environmental protection. I think that's the #1 thing that I've seen. I put them together because they're related like that. It's also the most concerning one in terms of how much time we have to deal with it. We have infrastructure we have to build is complex, and I've been involved in a lot of that stuff. So I think that's the #1 issue. It affects everything: property taxes, property values, businesses, and residential quality of life. Additionally, I think the second one is mobility. I probably have some disagreements with Mr. Tree on how to handle that, and I think that's a legitimate conversation. I think that in some cases, the community's had that conversation, and I think mobility is it's an exciting issue because we'll be building new infrastructure with the new fee. Historic preservation would be the third. I think we're sitting in a building that's an example of the power of historic preservation. And I'd also like to say that I think as a commissioner, I will be looking for tying those 3 themes together. I think we see that a lot. If we protect ourselves from flooding, we're protecting historic assets. If we have non-automotive mobility options in the middle of the town, we're protecting our historic plan. So those are the 3 main concerns to me, and that's what I will focus on. And I will be friendly for infrastructure for those things if I'm a commissioner. Thank you.
To follow up on that, as far as what we look at as upon mobility, and mobility is a very popular word, sometimes overused, but we need to focus mobility on residents and visitors. If we just focus on visitors, that's not for us. We need to keep that idea that our residents are what make us alive.
That's good. I would disagree with Mr. Tree. I think the mobility plan is going to be very good for residents. I think think I'm a biker. Probably a lot of you see me driving around town on my bike all the time. I've been doing a lot of canvassing on my bike, and I would dispute the idea that any of the mobility plan is not going to be good for residents. I think if you had a transit system, that would be good. If you had safe bike paths, that would be good. So I don't like this idea that it's just one for the other. It's moving people around the town more efficiently and safely, and I think it would improve the quality of life for residents.
All right. Okay. John, you're going to be the first person to speak on this next one, and you're going to have up to 3 minutes if you'd like.
Okay.
Let me quickly ask you the question. So the overarching question really here is, how would you make St. Augustine a better place to live rather than just visit? 10 years ago, the city adopted its current vision plan. It's been a key document which has guided governance and development in the city over the past decade. The opening statement says St. Augustine will be a livable, authentic waterfront city that builds upon its rich history and environment to create a distinctive community character founded on a healthy and vibrant economy, a diverse mix of people and experiences, and a valuing of its natural asset. The plan proposes that this be accomplished first by maintaining the quality of life for residents, second, by encouraging development that is consistent with the look and feel of the city, third, by maintaining the city as a small residential community while protecting its historic features, scale, distinctive neighborhoods, hospitality, and natural environments, and finally, by supporting economic vitality, environmental assets, and human diversity. It's been 10 years. What have we done well? What have we done not so well? And what needs to be updated?
It's a very large question.
Yeah, that's why you get 3 minutes.
And I think it's probably the question that's on everybody's mind. I will tell you what I think the plan itself, the goals, actually accomplished. I'm not saying that necessarily I'm in support of some of the stuff, but I will say what I think it actually accomplished, because I think that's the point we're at now. First of all, I want to tell people that this plan is was done 10 years ago. Economic situations were probably different. There was a lot. There was no mention of flooding or resiliency, so I would like to comment on where we go forward from here. But I will tell you what I think from reading the document, particularly the executive summary. The primary goal of the document, in the vision plan was to create a comprehensive mobility plan that funds itself. That goal has been accomplished. I know it's not put in inception yet. It's going to take a long time to do that. It's going to be a build out with available funds, but I personally am very excited that that's been passed. So that goal, I think, has been achieved. A couple secondary goals would be the homelessness. The city has done quite a bit with homelessness since then. That was a priority of the city. There's a new drop-in center being built out at 207 and South Dixie Road. That I agree with. I think that was a good goal that's been met. Recognize and promote historical diversity. I think that's been done. I think we're teaching a little bit more of Black history. We're going to have a new museum here. And it's called to develop a master plan. The city has delivered on that. It has developed a historic master plan, preservation, a master plan for historic. I was there when I first got on the board. I know that was in there. Now here's the one that may or not, I want to hear what the public thinks about on this, and that is the one that made the city a cultural, culinary destination for dining, live music, nightlife, and weddings. I think it's really delivered on that. So those are achievable goals that we've seen. I would like to see public comment on these themselves before I make any kind of judgment on it, because I'll be representing the whole city. I think what we have not done so well is some of the stuff that has to do with neighborhoods. I think there was some neighborhood empowerment stuff that maybe we could work on. I think some of the neighborhoods feel that they've been pressured through this. So that's not something. I would say, because I have 15 seconds left, The best thing to do right now is get involved in this vision plan. I want to tell everybody a survey is coming out next week. The plan's only going to be as good as the residents do it. I would like to see the neighborhood council and the presidents really make an effort to get this out, get people to participate in the survey.
The vision plan is just that. It's a plan. It evolves. It is fluid. And it has to be. But where we've delivered well on is all of it in some little way. Does it all need improvement? Absolutely. Did we get our cultural nightlife and entertainment? Yeah. Maybe even a little bit more than we wanted. That got out of control. Now granted, we became a very popular state, more popular than we had before, during COVID. That drove a lot of market to our area that wanted that entertainment they were not able to get elsewhere. So it exploded. So that maybe we need to reel back on. You know, maybe we have not done that well. When it comes to the neighborhoods, we need to focus more on the neighborhoods and their walkability. Not just when we think of downtown and we're thinking about putting in or enhancing the sidewalks. We've got neighborhoods that do not even have sidewalks. We need to put more of a priority on that. We have to balance it. We can't not put all of our eggs in one basket. And it's not intentional. The city does great for our neighborhoods. I think we all know that. But I think we could do a better balancing act. We need to do a better balancing act. If not, this is not going to be the city we recognize now. It will change, but it needs to have some sort of a cohesive environment with each other. I'd like to see the neighborhood council, for example, play a larger role in how decisions are made that affect the vision plan. I'd like to see the neighborhood council delegate 2 seats on the planning and zoning board. That way we know we're getting a fair representation. And we need that protection basically just from ourselves. I also think we need to we have to look at on the vision plan, and I'm going to mimic John on this, homelessness. We've done great. He is absolutely right on that. The new drop center they're putting in is a great idea. But we also need to do the smaller things that don't cost much money. We've got to give the homeless dignity. There's got to be compassion involved. We have shower facilities at those marina. Why can we not open those up for 2 hours a day for the homeless to take a shower, shave, and have a clothing exchange? Buy donated clothing from wherever we can get that. But we have to introduce that as a compassionate way to deal with them in smaller levels. It helps. It helps a little bit there. It helps a little bit for all of us. And I think that's, I'd like to say that the vision plan did work, but it desperately needs some improvements.
One thing I didn't get to really add in is I really want to call out for everybody to get involved in the vision plan. Technically speaking also, I think what should be included going forward on the vision plan is more emphasis on sustainability and resilience. I think that's a very important issue facing the town, and I think we need to do that. And as far as having someone from the neighborhood council on the planning board, I am an ex-neighborhood association president, so I think I would meet the qualifications for Mr. Triai's request. And also, I just really want to try to get the neighborhood council involved in the vision plan to tell their residents to get involved. There will be a survey coming out. Thank you.
All right. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay, your guiding principles. Often residents and commercial interests stand on opposite sides of a proposed ordinance. Residents are often not as well organized or well funded as commercial interests, but residents have just as much at stake in how these issues are decided because the value of their homes are tied up in the livability and residential character of their neighborhood. Examples of such ordinances are the recently defeated nightlife ordinance, the proposed noise ordinance, the tabled parking ordinance update, and PUDs that would remove tree cover, build in conservation overlay zones, or push commercial ventures deeper into residential neighborhoods. What are the principles that will guide you as you face decisions on issues and ordinances where commercial interests are pitted against residential interests?
Okay, well, I have some experience of this as a neighborhood association president. This is what I did for 3 years. So the first question that would be my guiding principles, my experience as a neighborhood association president. So what we would do when there was an issue that would come into the neighborhood, I think the first thing to ask is it affecting the residential quality of life for the residents? And if it is, how is it? And working with them to find some kind of consensus on things. I think that's how it worked for us in our neighborhood. I think another question would be, if it's an ordinance that's having a problem, like a noise ordinance, I would ask the question, is it a lack of enforcement on the ordinance? I would ask, is the issue, we did this in our neighborhood association, is the issue being caused by a lack of communication between the stakeholders? So if you have a business and you have a residential group and you find the residential group is on a consensus that they have that, it's good to reach out to that business person, or I'm using that as an example, or an event appraiser to say, is this problem being caused by lack of communication? Is it being caused by lack of enforcement? And really a high issue for me, some of what you did might not be, but a big issue for me is always public safety. Is this an issue that's public safety? And if it's an issue of public safety, it's a high priority for me. But I think it's engaging with your neighborhood, which I've experienced doing, finding out what they do, surveying them in some cases. I found surveys were always a good tool to use, and then you build consensus in your neighborhood. Then you go to the city, and you're going as a group, and you're not just going as an individual. You get better results.
There again, I'm going to go back to the word that I often use, and that's balance. And it's very important that we realize when we talk about commercial industries going into residential areas, what exactly is that? Is all of San Marco considered a commercial entity? Yes, for the most part. Abutted to residential throughout. Same with downtown. Oops. I think the battery didn't. Okay. Same with downtown. Downtown has a neighborhood. Lincolnville is a neighborhood. All of these are impacted by commercial, and they see it more quickly than we ever do. We have to keep aware that those folks have the say-so, and should have the say-so. There again, the neighborhood council. I think the battery might be going down.
It's on, you just said
Oh, it went on. There it is. We have to keep in mind that we've got to have the neighborhood council voice their opinion, because you guys represent a much larger group than what's here. We should be listening to you. Yeah. And if it does, I can talk loud. So we really need to keep you guys, more involved with the decision-making process. That's so important. And if we can get you to go up to the planning and zoning board when these decisions are being made. Keep in mind, PUDs, they are addressed by the city at the long run. And in the long run, they get to say. So many other times, it stays at the planning and zoning board level. We maximize lot coverage when we shouldn't. When you put more than what the maximum allowed lot coverage is, there's a flooding issue involved. We need to address that. We need to know that that flooding from that commercial building isn't going into a neighbor's property, that isn't flooding out other areas. We need to be more concerned about that.
I would, as a planning board member for 6 years, I always welcome testimony from people, and I think that would encourage that from everybody, whether they're groups, whether they're the council, whether the neighborhood association. I do find from my experience that sometimes neighborhood association presidents feel uncomfortable speaking for their whole group. But I would welcome any kind of comment from people that want to come up and do it. And as far as the PUD, that's a public testimony. Everyone can talk about that, and it goes in the written record, and it's better than doing it on social media where it's not going into the record. Thank you.
There again, we need your involvement on this. Too many times a PUD has been passed, even though people spoke against it. And I'll bring up one case in point, and I'm very passionate about this. Behind the bank building, or what we know as 24 Cathedral Place, they want to build a 4-story garage and additional hotel space that is completely inappropriate. It was approved by the PUD. It was approved by Planning and Zoning. And it will go to the city, but hopefully not before one of us is elected.
We're just going to keep this one going. All right. Okay. Billy's going to be the first one to respond to this. It's on resiliency. Even though the city is actively working to protect the downtown historic area from nuisance flooding and up to a Category 1 hurricane strike, to many residents, the pace of implementation feels glacially slow, and residents in many neighborhoods, both in and outside of the downtown historic area, still have to regularly deal with flooding and the prospect of increasingly severe hurricane activity. What can be done to increase the pace of the city's resiliency preparations? And are we doing enough in the face of escalating severe weather threats?
This is one that we can all feel after Matthew and Irma. That was an eye-opener of exactly how bad it can get. That hurricane did not even hit us. It stayed off the coast. That's scary. The resiliency programs and the projects that the city want to put in place take time. These are large projects. The one at the Maria Sanchez Lake is going through. That will happen. The larger projects are going to take so much more time. But what we can do individually and as a city, we can use smaller projects. For example, the University of Florida, the folks I work with, the historic preservation class, is doing a landscape flood mitigation study to find out what we can do via landscape. Some of the items that have come out of this so far, it's nowhere near completed, are berms, plain old dirt hills. Those can be put in place. They're attractive, but those can be put in place to prevent coastal flooding. They help a great deal. Those kind of small projects, we have to get rid of the concrete. We've got to stop putting down so much concrete. We've got to make more pervious solutions on surfaces. We can do that. It doesn't cost any more money than laying concrete. We need to look at that. But that's something the whole city needs to be committed to doing. All of its residents. We have to look into that. That study will hopefully be completed next year, and it will be out there for everyone to use. So please, keep involved in our resiliency individually, not just waiting for the city's projects to be completed.
Okay, I've been around the city a lot, and I know there's people in here I've talked to about the flooding issue. This is a massive project. That's why it's the first priority of mine if I'm on the commission. It's massive, it's big, it's going to take a lot of time. However, there are things, I think there's a feeling out there that things aren't getting done. So from what I've seen from people, I've heard some complaints from people that things aren't happening quick enough. These things do take a long time. However, immediately, I think we could begin a more aggressive schedule for cleaning our existing tie check valves. These things need to be cleaned periodically, and I think we could maybe satisfy the resident doing that immediately. We could also evaluate and maintain some of the existing ditches and culverts the city has. When I'm out there, I hear from people a lot that, hey, look at this is overgrown, or there's a tree in the middle of this culvert, and they're concerned about that. And then we'll continue to install the new check valves that are going on now also. Then we build new infrastructure. The city does have been building that. There's $40 million allocated to that. We need aggressive grant writing to get the money to do this stuff. And part of it is we need to develop a sustainable building code. That would be the resilient shoreline ordinance that talks to us about seawalls or living, using armoring or not armoring. And we need to redo our conservation overlay development laws. I know that. I'm on the planning board. I've seen that. That's a necessary step. We need to continue purchasing lands for conservation. That helps with flood mitigation. And I would weight it to that level. And then I would also have better communication with the residents on what's going on. I think we had that at one time, a graphic on the website telling you what things are being fixed and what things aren't.
In addition to what I had said before, I do think the city can make effective, affordable decisions that will help flooding in our areas. Identify where that water flow is coming in and hit those points. Sometimes it might be just something as simple as putting up those temporary concrete barriers at certain intersections, at certain roads. It doesn't hurt to try it. Best advice someone ever gave me: don't spend $20,000 making a $5,000 decision.
The flood corridors already have been identified. They were part of a plan that was done a couple years back. And also one last thing about the pervious surface. It's a very good point. We all should thank former Commissioner John Valdez, who worked with the city to, when he was there, to put in city code that 30% of a parcel needs to remain pervious. Before that, surprisingly, there was nothing that would stop you from concreting your whole lot. Now there is that. That's the kind of things that can be done with city code with a commissioner who has some experience.
All right, so we need to now pick our first speaker for the next one. And Mr. Scott York, would you mind picking our next first speaker? That is a wicked cool hat.
Yeah.
Mr. John? All right, so
Okay.
so hold on a second. So John, you'll be speaking to question number 6 first, and Billy, you'll be speaking to question number 7 first. Question 6 is on infrastructure. Given our city's aging and in many cases undersized infrastructure, how do you plan to address the strain on local infrastructure and services that the huge and increasing volume of tourists is imposing on it, while ensuring that the quality of life for residents isn't compromised?
Thank you. First thing that comes to mind for me, I could go in and explain how the infrastructure is actually paid for. The roads are paved with parking fees, and the wastewater is treated like it just would anyway. So when people are visiting here, they're paying fees into the system. So I think just want to get that out there. As far as how we can lessen the load on our infrastructure, I think the mobility plan would do a very good job at that. I think if we get more people on traveling not in cars and not driving around downtown looking for a parking place, I think that's going to be easier on our infrastructure. And additionally, I think maybe, I don't know, when I was looking at this question originally, I thought that maybe it was leading to the conversation that we've had in the past, which is looking to TDC possibly to get more money. And that's been tried. It can always be tried again. It's just you have to get in line. There's a lot of people that want to get that money for beach renourishments and stuff. So as far as getting back to mobility, so I'll take the example of the circulator. People come into town, instead of driving their car around, they get in the circulator and they're going to drive around on the circulator. I would be open to some kind of idea to raise fees for the infrastructure in some kind of way, some kind of user fee, but I have not heard as of now that there would be a need to do that. So I think I would just try to lighten the load on the downtown in many ways as much as I could, and try to get something from TDC if it's possible.
So our aging infrastructure, our roads, and we naturally assume when we're talking about the degradation of them by the tourists, we're talking about the historic district. Well, all of us know that traffic backs up onto San Marco, it backs up on Anastasia, it backs up on King and everywhere else. So we've got to remember that this tourism impact is not strictly for the historic district or downtown in general. That's why I think it's so much more important to put our parking facilities outside of the historic district. I'm going to give you just one example. I don't know if you're familiar with the FEC property that sits just south of Winn-Dixie on US 1 North. That property was looked at for parking, satellite parking, literally, I want to say it was 15 or 20 years ago, and never followed through. But that's what we need. We need to keep the parking outside this district and running those shuttles and those circulators from there. Those are other areas, there's several other areas we can look at. Not everything has to be a gigantic parking facility. It can be smaller parking, satellite areas that can be used for busing folks in. Now with that in mind, for the affordability of these projects, Savannah has done for at least 20 years an occupancy fee. $1 for every evening you stay at a hotel in the city of Savannah, $1 goes to the city of Savannah. We can do that. It's not a tax. It's a fee imposed on hotels and short-term lodging. That, I feel, is our best course of action.
As far as the new mobility fee, the new mobility fee has a plan. The new mobility plan has a fee that will be raised by new construction and major renovations. So any development that does come into town, whether you're in or outside the historic district, will have to pay that fee. And I agree very much. I would like to see transit running up and down our corridors. And as far as the parking lot north of town, that is a satellite parking garage. That is the essence of the mobility plan. So I agree with Mr. Trion.
I'm going to make this short and sweet. I think I agree with a lot of what he has to say on that. And he agrees with me. I'm actually in complete agreement. I think both of those will work together.
Thank you. The next question is affordable housing. Affordable housing is a growing concern in our community. What strategies would you implement to ensure that St. Augustine remains accessible for individuals and families across different income levels? And Billy, you're going to be the first person to speak to this.
Affordable housing in St. Augustine as a whole is non-existent. I think we all know that. One of the biggest killers on that has been short-term lodging. That has interfered and put a rip in the fabric of affordable housing. We had no control over that, but we do now. We can, going forward, let's make it so that short-term rentals are still available because we have no choice, but let's make it also that maybe it becomes a better investment for long-term lodging than short-term lodging. How do we do that? Unfortunately, you make it more difficult for short-term lodging. You establish residential parking only. And that doesn't mean that you get 10 passes for the 10 people that want to stay in a 2-bedroom house. We have to make it more profitable to make it short-term lodging. As far as setting up short-term lodging, affordable housing, we are never going to be able to afford to do that. That's the plain and simple truth. The city of St. Augustine will never be able to afford to put in low-income housing or affordable housing. Now, here's something we can do. A large amount of our workforce downtown and in the city in general is the hospitality industry. We can't provide affordable housing, but we can provide affordable parking. Let's make all of those loading zones downtown, the larger ones, not the smaller loading zones, the larger loading zones. Let's make that free residential parking so that those folks have a place to park and aren't paying, even with the discounts, not paying so much of their tips and wages and parking. It's the little things, but we can help.
Affordable housing, this is something that we discussed on the planning board through the comprehensive plan. There's an element, housing element, we discussed this. I'm going to tell you what the best options are that I think from that discussion. The best, most affordable way to build affordable homes is to make them multifamily homes. That just drops the unit cost per unit, and that's what I heard from the builders and the other people on my planning board that know a lot more about this. Second thing is you would have to do is you'd have to allow increased density and a little bit loosening of regulations. That would be an example we did on the corner of Palmer and Chapin. We gave them some parking. We loosened the parking a little bit. These were existing homes that were there. And this is with the Emergency Service Housing Coalition. So that's the way that would work. And generally you have to partner with someone else, because you have to check people's income. you have to do, there's a lot of administrative work that comes with that. So I don't think the city is going to be able to do that themselves. So the three components are multifamily, loosening of restrictions, which some people might not like, and then working with a NGO, nonprofit. The other way that you can do it is something we already have, and that with the new West City CRA, in the community redevelopment area in Lincolnville, there is a Fix It Up program, and that allows people who are already living in their homes that have a hard time keeping their homes repaired in their homes. And in a way, it's an affordable housing for the people who already live here. And that's happening in Lincolnville right now. And it's also that we have a new CRA on the west side. They may choose to do that. That'll be up to that board. I think they probably will. But that's keeping people in their homes that are already here. Thank you.
John made a good point about keeping people in their homes. There are several residents that are not able to keep the maintenance up on their houses. I'd like to propose that the neighborhood grants that go out are instead utilized for assistance programs. That individual residents anonymously, not that they should be poked out in public, that can apply for these grants and that are given to help with those maintenance or to help with a bill.
I don't really have anything more to say. I think I said everything I wanted on it. But I would like to say one thing about the workforce parking is our parking garage, you can get a pass. I went down there the other day, checked it out, to check out really the hurricane stuff. And you can get a pass for $34.08 a month. She told me, she was very exact. And right when that was happening, a woman was going to work in Columbia. She said she parks there for $1 a day and she walks to work. And the parking garage has that capacity, I think.
All right, we are coming down the home stretch here. And Mardahan, would you mind picking the next first speaker? Just one. Who's that?
Okay, this is John.
Oh, the gods keep picking John's. All right. Okay, John. So you'll be the first speaker on the mobility question, question number 8, and Billy, you'll be the first speaker on question number 9, engagement and communication with residents. So we've already touched on this, and a little backstory about this. This is a choose your own adventure question because we got 4 questions that were so good I couldn't pick among them. So you can pick one, you can pick 2, you can pick 3, you can speak to mobility in general. Pick your adventure on this. But here we go. So given the goals of the recently passed mobility plan, here's one question. What are your thoughts on the walkability and bikeability of St. Augustine? Is it sufficient as is, or if not, what areas do you think should be changed? The second question, if you want to choose this one, is what are your thoughts on the King Street Enhancement Project with its associated driving and parking changes, and will it benefit the residents of St. Augustine? And the third question, if you want to choose it, is traffic and emergency vehicle access is an essential part of the safety and livability of our neighborhoods, yet choke points exist. Examples of this are Abbott-Track's narrow streets exacerbated by pop-up parking lots, which hinder emergency vehicle access, and gridlock in Lincolnville and Old City South, caused by pickup and drop-off at the Catholic Parish School and Veritas schools. What can be done to identify and deal with these choke points and this kind of neighborhood gridlock? So once again, you can pick one or more than one if you want. John's the first speaker.
Well, look, just explain to people, I got the mic. The mobility plan sounds complicated, it's very simple. It's just giving people more options to get around town. And it has a funding mechanism that is going to be, that'll raise funds with new buildings, and it's going to take a commissioner that's really committed to that and work on these projects year after year. You're going to get ideas, and we're going to work our way through it. So that's that. As far as these things here, look, I biked all over this town. I think it's just a matter of whether you're crazy enough sometimes to do what good other places I do. As far as with thoughts on the King Street Enhancement Project, I am so happy. I can say this as a resident of this town. I'm so happy and so pleased to see that project go through. I think it's been a huge success for the city, and I want to compliment the administrations that worked on it before. We were always, for the longest time in this town, people have been talking about traffic congestion, and they would say nothing got done, something got done. It's a huge success for the city. And that's going to make east-west corridor, it's going to be a shared street. We're all going to have to get used to this. There's going to be different things. It's going to be a shared street. You might be on the road with cars. I drive my electric bike down the road. It can be done now. It's a little difficult, but that's what we're working toward. As far as the shuttle system, at Veritas School, I got in trouble because I asked for a shuttle system to that. When that application came up, I refused that application because I said, I think you guys should have a shuttle, like a regular bus. If you're at school, you should be able to pick people up and you come back. It wasn't a particularly popular decision at the time. As far as Abitrak's narrow streets, I just saw a plan. I don't know who lives here yet or what they know yet, but I think Ruben has been working on a plan for that, so I think our staff has been pretty responsive to that particular problem. So.
I'll first discuss the King Street Enhancement Program, or project. I'm not on board with that. I'm simply not on board with it. It widens sidewalks for Cathedral. It takes away parking from Cathedral. If any of you happen to be downtown in the mornings, that area is full. Whether it's folks going to church, or whether it's, and usually these are residents that are using it for downtown in the mornings, because that's basically the only time we feel like we can get there. I don't like the traffic pattern as it's set out. I think it makes it far more difficult for people to drop their children off to CPS. I'm also going to include the traffic circle at the base of the Bridge Alliance. I don't believe we need to go that far. If we want to add an additional lane going north on San Marco, or I'm sorry, Avenida Menendez, so be it. We can add an additional lane, a turning lane. We do not need to make people go into a circle and then do a U-turn to go to the south. I think that will prevent people, or at least discourage people from going to the south parts of the state historic district. That's where our historical society is. That's where the oldest house is. Those folks survive on admissions. I believe it will end up cutting them. I believe it will make it difficult for the trolleys to go there and drop folks off in that south section to see our national cemetery. Again, see the oldest house complex. I don't believe that's necessary. We do not need to do that. In emergency vehicles, this is something we really need to consider because of it's become rather important lately. Nights of Lights traffic backs up everything. If an ambulance or a fire truck needs to get somewhere, Abitrak, or Fullawood, or Anastasia, anywhere, they are impeded by that kind of traffic. We need a better program to react to emergencies.
Oh, I think we're in agreement. Emergency vehicles should be able to get down roads when it's necessary. I mean, that's just a basic public safety thing, and I think that's what was being worked out in Abitrak from what I understood about that. As far as the base of the Bridge Alliance, I live on the island. I think when you look at something like this, it's a quantitative thing. If you can get more traffic through and have a queue better, I think that's a good thing. I reserve my right to not say it looks good. There could be aesthetic things desired, but the general fact I like.
I'll just do a bit of a follow-up on that, on the traffic circle. It's not a project where you try it. Once this is done, we're stuck with this.
Okay, we're in the home stretch here, folks. All right. Billy will be the first to answer this question: engagement and communication with residents. In Spanish Quarter, it's late night loud music and partying tourists. In Lighthouse Park, it's dealing with old septic systems that need to be replaced. In Lincolnville, Flagler Model Land, in North City, it's the rampant spread of short-term rentals. And in South Davis Shores and Ravenswood, it's flooding, commercial incursion, and a lack of sidewalks. Every St. Augustine neighborhood is unique, and residents in those neighborhoods have unique issues and concerns. But many of those residents will probably never email you or show up to city commission meetings. What can you do to reach out to those residents to meet and engage them and to learn about their specific issues and concerns? How will you learn about the issues and concerns of neighbors who live in neighborhoods other than the one that you live in? And Billy is going to be the first one to speak on this.
I wish there was an easy answer for this. There's no way, whether it's John or myself, or anyone on the city commission, is going to be able to talk to every single person in the city and get their feel. So having an idea of how to reach out to us and how we can reach out to you needs to be simplified. It needs to be done at a neighborhood association level. It needs to have the individual neighborhoods association come up with their feeling so that it's being represented well. 1,000 voices will never be heard. So you want to make sure that each neighborhood is having their say on how you feel about the decisions we're making. Let's face it, this is not just our town, it's your town. This is not what we want, it should be what you want. And it's so important that we make a more simplified idea of how you reach us and how we respond. We're not going to be able to respond to 1,000 emails, and thank God. But we can definitely respond to a neighborhood council. We can definitely respond to a neighborhood association. We can meet with those, whether individually as we're invited, or as it's presented at a commission meeting to the commission as a whole. But it's so important, because you represent the neighborhoods, that you have someone that speaks for that neighborhood, so that we can get a real idea of what you want. And we can have all the ideas. John and I can sit up here and tell you everything we'd like to do. When it comes right down to it, it's what do you want? And we need to hear that. But there has to be a filter. There has to be a way for it to get to us in an understandable method.
Better engagement. I would go back to my experience as a neighborhood association president and having done this. First of all, I think regular meetings with neighborhood associations is a good thing. It wasn't that long ago I came here to a meeting with Fullerwood Neighborhood Association, and David was here, Chief of Police was here, and they discussed a number of things in here. I thought it was a very responsive, the city was very responsive at that meeting to the residents' concerns from what I saw. That's just 2 months ago in this neighborhood. I think the best thing to do is neighborhoods themselves have some responsibility in this, and they have to work together and they have to build consensus around an issue. This is what I tried to do in my neighborhood. Successful neighborhoods do it. Ravenswood neighborhood's done a very good job of this recently. And you build consensus around the issue. So say if it's Lighthouse Park with the septic, I asked our neighborhood association to hold a meeting to discuss septic as a separate issue. And the city was good to come over. Ruben came over, our engineers came over. It was a very informative because it's concentrated on one issue. That's one way to do it. Second way to do it, to build consensus in a neighborhood, is surveys. You can do a survey monkey and you can find out what your neighborhood wants. The point of this is if you go to the city then and you say, I got 60, 70% of people in my neighborhood behind this, that's much better than he's right. You can't take all these phone calls all the time. It would be difficult. So if the city has to do that, I happen to like less formal events. I went out to the Ravenswood neighborhood recently and helped clean up branches and stuff. I think that's a very good way for a commissioner to get in touch with their constituents and help them form neighborhood grants. That in and of itself is a consensus building operation. Thank you.
I'll just reiterate that neighborhood council involvement and neighborhood association involvement is key to understanding what you want. There again, we have to make ourselves available for you, but you have to help us. You have to help us get to that point. You have to let us know what format would you like that to take place in. Would you let us come to your meetings and want to speak on that or want to speak to us? Or do you want a survey monkey? That's fantastic. None of that is a bad idea. We can do it all, but we have to make it concise.
There's not really much more I have to say on that, other than the fact that I think this format we have right here now wouldn't be bad. Doing something like this once a year, maybe outside of an association, a particular neighborhood association that the council could do. I'll tell you, if I'm a commissioner and you want to do this once a year, I'll sit down here and I'll take questions from anybody. This is what the neighborhoods have to be doing. They have to kind of organize, and it's very good for commissioners to get that experience. I know you get it a lot from the planning board, from public testimony, but I think this is better.
All right, last question. Final words. Last words before we go. Tell us why we should vote for you, and tell us anything else that you would like us to consider as we head to the voting booth. We won't have a rebuttal on this one. Billy, you're the first to talk on this one.
Why should you vote for me? We need a commission and commissioners that ask difficult questions. You have the cross-section of our commission right now is fantastic. When I was with the city of St. Augustine, I did some of those budgets. I saw where the money comes from, I saw where it goes, I saw how it's used. We need commissioners that can ask, is this project really funded appropriately? Sometimes a number is thrown out. We need somebody who's going to ask, let's see the budget numbers and where that's coming from. And are these safe budget numbers 5 years from now when that project is actually commissioned? We have to ask the difficult questions. I want to be that person that does that. I want to be the person that asks difficult questions. Not be complicated by any means. I want to be efficient. But I want to be one of those commissioners that has this question to ask. I want to be the ones that ask, is this good for the community? Here's my example. Far too often I've seen projects take place that when they were introduced, they said, we're going to go get public engagement. Here's what we want to do. The public didn't like it. Well, here's what we're going to do anyway. We actually have to be more understanding that these projects, some of them are unnecessary. Let's fix what needs to be fixed, beautify what needs to be beautified later on. But we've got to fix our cracks first. I'm using the cracks as just metaphor. We've got to correct the problems that have happened. Small. We don't have large problems. We have small problems, a lot of them. We can fix those easily. But we have to ask the difficult questions. Is this right for right now? Is this what the neighborhoods want? Is this best for our residents and our workforce?
Last word, John.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for coming out. This is a very good format. I think it keeps the candidates sharp and it keeps you informed. So I'm really pretty simple. I'm running on pretty simple stuff. I'm running on my experience and my credibility from the last 9 years. I was elected president of my neighborhood association by my friends and neighbors for 3 years, and I told you we accomplished the lighthouse rezoning, we got the conservation area done, we got the safer pickup and drop-off protocol. I like getting results done in the real world. It's just something for me that I find very satisfying. I was appointed to the Planning and Zoning Board 3 times by 3 different city commissions. I was selected by my planning board members to be co-chair for 1 year and chairman for 1 year. I've been on both sides of the microphone in the Alcazar room. I've been there advocating for the residential quality of life for Lighthouse Park residents. And I've been on the other side of the table listening to people like me make arguments for residential quality of life for the residents. I've been at the table, made those decisions that Mr. Triai is talking about for big projects. The Nombre de Dios amphitheater, I was in on that. This environmental things, like when there was an application to run a ditch straight down the middle of Fish Island and put 8-foot fence on either side, I was there for that. So I think I have the experience, and I think I have a track record of trying to preserve residential quality of life, protect our natural resources is very important to me. I think it's very important in the community, and I think I share those goals, and I have experience on some, bringing results on them. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Thank you all as well for coming. A beautiful night, and yet you spent it indoors, but I can't thank you enough for participating and attending. I'd like to encourage you all to spend a little bit of time chatting with the candidates. We have the room until 8:15, so you're welcome to spend some time meeting and greeting and mingling. Remember that early voting starts this coming Monday, 10/21, and it lasts until 11/2. Am I right on that, Gina? 11/2, I think. But it's for the next 2 weeks, so make sure that you get out and vote. All right. Thank you very much.